What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Gooner channel, and here we are. An international break, possibly the worst possible time for there to be an international break, with the Premier League title running, looking like it's going to be the most hotly contested Premier League of all time. A three-way race to the finish line between Manchester City, everybody's strong favourites, treble winners, best team in the world, managed by the best manager in the world. Liverpool, with Jurgen Klopp in his swan song season, now still on for a treble of sorts. And Arsenal, everybody's telling us that we can't do it. And we are desperate to see if this team is different from last season in the sense that it can cross the line. This Premier League break is really nothing more than a very unwelcome distraction and delay in getting to that crunch match at the Etihad on the 31st, just over a week away. And in between, we have to worry that Declan Rice might pick up an injury. Thankfully, Bukayo Saka's pulled out of the England squad with an injury, which apparently they didn't know he had when they called him up. Gabriel with a foot injury. Martinelli with a cut on his foot that hasn't healed. We know all this. But this international break, as frustrating as it is, does give me an opportunity to break one of my rules, which is talking about transfers. Now, with the quarterfinals of the Champions League against Bayern Munich coming up and the run into the Premier League title, where we're still very much in contention despite what people might tell you, there is so much to talk about at Arsenal that has nothing to do with players who may be coming in the summer. But I'm going to break my rule on this one because there is one player who I think is the missing piece to the jigsaw puzzle, who is so good that if we were able to sign him this summer, it could be transformative. If the worst case scenario plays out and we aren't able to progress to the semi-finals or beyond the semi-finals to the final, if we do indeed end up losing the Premier League title to the world's best team managed by the world's best manager, or Jurgen Klopp's swan song season at Liverpool where he might yet win a treble of sorts, then so be it. But if we sign this one player, I genuinely think next season could be a completely different picture. I mean, likely will be anyway, with Jurgen Klopp already saying he's leaving, and Pep Guardiola still hasn't signed a contract extension, so who knows? It could be his last season next season. And listen, just before I get into telling you who I think is the transformative player that will catapult Arsenal into being one of the best clubs in the world, why not hit a quick like and subscribe if you haven't yet? Back to the video. But who am I talking about? No, I'm not talking about Victor Osimhen and his potential 20 or 30 goals a season. Nor am I talking about Guy Corres, who's flavour of the month now that no one's talking about Ivan Toney anymore. And I'm certainly not talking about Mbappe, who I think we all now know is joining Real Madrid. I don't actually necessarily even think we need to sign a striker this summer, although, let's be honest, an upgrade on Eddie Nketiah would be very welcome. I'm talking about a part of the team that we absolutely are going to need to strengthen. Thomas Partey looks increasingly less likely to stay at Arsenal beyond the end of this season. El Nenny's not getting any younger. And Jorginho has looked an incredibly impressive signing for just £12 million, coming as he did from Chelsea in January of last year. His appearance against Liverpool transformed the way we play. After that break in Dubai, it was his introduction to the midfield which allowed us to play the ball more quickly. His through balls have been a huge asset to us, but his game management and his ability to be a stand-in skipper, all vital. The problem, though, is that Jorginho isn't getting any younger either and doesn't seem like the sort of player you could pick every single match. So, we definitely need to strengthen the midfield, but it's also true to say that we're lacking a little bit of cover at the back. So if there is a player out there who can play just as well in the back, who's currently playing exceptionally well at right back, and is arguably one of the best defensive midfielders in world football over the last 10 years, then he's the man to get. I am, of course, talking about Bayern Munich's 29-year-old midfielder Joshua Kimmich. Without question, one of the outstanding stars of Bayern Munich that we're going to be facing in the quarterfinals. Brought in by Pep Guardiola in 2015, a player who got so much attention from Guardiola that it would have buckled most players. He was constantly being berated and shouted at. And this is a clip of him where Pep Guardiola ran onto the pitch after he'd played in a winning game.
Giving a lesson to Kimmich and the fine art of defending. He's a very adaptable young player. He's been in the midfield and also in the centre of defence. And in possession, Bayern was the better team.
Now, it later transpired that rather than giving Kimmich a hard time, what Pep was actually doing in this clip was telling him that he thinks he's the potential to be one of the best in the world. This was in a game where he had been playing as centre-back, but with changes that had been made in the second half, he was expected to move more into midfield. Now, that's a role that he took over from Xabi Alonso and has been heralded as a successor to Philipp Lahm, one of the greats of the game. He is one of those players who is sometimes referred to as a lighthouse, a fantastic picture of what's going on around him, cool off the ball, ferocious in the tackle, and progresses the ball so quickly. He has an almost De Bruyne-esque ability to find players with wonderful through balls, either lofted through the air or along the ground. He breaks up play better than almost anyone and is a real leader on the pitch. 3 years ago, there were rumours that Kimmich might be going back to play for Pep Guardiola at Manchester City. It's a kind of love affair that Kimmich talked about, just how instrumental Pep Guardiola had been to him. But that didn't transpire. This week, Sky Sports Germany have broken a story that contract talks between Kimmich and Bayern Munich have stalled. Now, at the start of the season, when there were rumours flying around that Kimmich might be for sale, I thought it was absolute nonsense. After all, he is a true legend at Bayern, and why would he ever want to leave? But since then, we've seen Thomas Tuchel rip the heart out of that team. They're lacklustre, and let's face it, with Thomas Tuchel already stepping down in summer, no one really knowing who's to come in, is there a chance that at 29 years old, with only a year left on his contract at the end of this season, that he could go for as little as £12 million. Now, of course, we're not the only team that are supposed to be in for him, but we've been very strongly linked with him, and it would be an absolute masterclass from Edu and Arteta if they were able to get Joshua Kimmich. He has once again been linked with Pep Guardiola at Manchester City. He's also been linked with Liverpool, not to mention Real Madrid. In fact, there has to be only a handful of clubs in the world that wouldn't benefit from a player of this stature. At the moment, he's playing at right back at Bayern Munich, and we're likely to face him in that position. Martinelli's going to have his work cut out for him if he's fit. He is absolutely exceptional. I don't think I could be more excited about a transfer. And the reason I think this might be possible is because there is so much uncertainty around Bayern. No one knows who's going to take over there. It could well be Xabi Alonso, who of course he deputised for when he started his Bayern career, often coming on to replace Xabi Alonso. So perhaps there's a good reason for him to want to stay. I mean, apart from anything, Bayern Munich players tend to want to stay at Bayern Munich for as long as they possibly can. There's only a couple that have ever left before they had to. He could, of course, go and join Pep Guardiola at Manchester City as well. And who wouldn't want to play alongside those kind of players? And it is a position that they need to fill as well. After all, Kyle Walker's not getting any younger. Kimmich has shown that he can play at right back. He's exactly the kind of player that Pep Guardiola wants. That's why he signed him for Bayern Munich from the relative obscurity of League Two. Would he join the Liverpool side not knowing who the manager's going to be there either? This could play really well into our hands. If we can pull out all the stops and convince him to join our project at Arsenal, I think it will be transformative. He's an ever-present. He's been in the team of the season for the last 6 years in Germany. He has very rarely put a foot wrong. He is a sort of player that gets on the pitch and you get at least an 8 out of 10 from almost every time. I can't say enough about his passing ability and his tackling ability. He's one of those lighthouse players with a perfect idea of what's going on around him at all times. The idea of him playing at 6 with Declan Rice in that 8 position, which we've seen him play really well recently, and Odegaard ahead of them, I really don't see how we could improve on our midfield at that point. Whatever happens this season, and I'm hugely optimistic about it, although I think we have to be realistic that with a squad like ours at the moment, we don't really have the depth to expect to be able to win the Champions League and the Premier League. And of course, if we do get past Bayern Munich, who I think are eminently beatable, then we have this horrible fixture congestion with games against Man City or Real Madrid to compete with, alongside games away to Manchester United and Tottenham, which can be tricky fixtures. This would be a signal of intent unlike any other, because Joshua Kimmich is not just a great footballer. He is a great character, fearless, knows when to be brave, knows which ball to play. I'm so hopeful. Edu, if you're watching this, don't sleep until you get this done. I want to know from you in the comments if you agree that Joshua Kimmich is more important to us than signing Victor Osimhen or Gyökeres. or if you think I'm completely mad. I'm always keen to hear from you. Please leave a comment below. Anyway, as I said right at the beginning, I don't usually talk about transfers, but I'm making an exception in this case. Now, when Joshua Kimmich came out and talked about this recently, he hasn't said he isn't moving. He said he's very calm about the contract extension. Things will sort themselves out. He's very happy, but he can't commit his future to Bayern really until he knows who's going to be taking over. So this is a window of opportunity that it would be more than foolish to miss. My fingers, my toes, everything is crossed. I don't think I could be more excited about a transfer. Let me know if you're similarly excited. And until I see you tomorrow after the England game for a bit of an assessment of what happened, be lucky and lots of love.